Let's talk about tools that you're going to need when starting a farm. I'm Holly.
Drew here.
I'm Jerry.
So, Drew, what would you say is the first and foremost thing that you would need when you're starting a farm?
Well, I'd probably say the first thing I would have are some good seeds.
Seeds. You're definitely going to need seeds. You can go expensive seeds with suppliers, or you can go cheap seeds with Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever big up box office store that you prefer. They're all going to end up producing plants. You're also going to need trays. You're going to need trays with holes, and you're going to need trays without holes. The trays without the holes will be for your seedlings. You'll need that to catch the water so you don't get water all over your area that you are germinating in. The trays with the holes you're going to need once you start bringing them out and watering them outside. You want them to drain well. Do you absolutely need both of those things? No. If you're doing a small little farm that you're just starting off, or if you're doing homesteading and you just want to put them in little cups and have little trays, you will need some sort of trays. When I first began, I bought little trays from the dollar store, little lids, and stuck my little cups in those and brought those out. And you're going to need cells. There are several different types of cells. There's 50 cells, there's 72 cells, depending on how fast you want to transplant. I use 50 cells because it actually gives you a little bit of time before you have to transplant. You have to eventually transplant, and so I go from the 50 cells to the 4 inches if I'm not going directly from the ground. After I get them trained, I can put them directly into the ground from the 50 cells, so I prefer that method. And just like with anything, guys, there's corners you can cut. You don't have to use the cells. You can use dollar store little cups, which we used the first year. You just drill holes in the bottom of them, and they become your little cells. They drain well, and they did amazing for us the first year. However, not everything you can cut corners on, lights being one of them. You have to have lights to germinate. You can germinate outside, but I definitely would not suggest it. You have way little control over germination outside as you do inside. You can control temperatures, and if you did decide to germinate outside, you're not going to be able to control the temperature, so you better hope that the weather is cooperating and you have the perfect temperatures. How many lights? Well, that depends on how many plants you plan on planting. How big your farm is how many plants you're going to need. And how many plants you're going to need is how many lights you're going to need. We use around 36 to 40 lights here on Cherish Farms.
It's time for small tools.
You're going to need a good pair of clippers. So you can find these at Home Depot, Lowe's, all different kinds of hardware places, Tractor Supply, whatever. But remember, keep them clean. We had to have a spade. This is good for digging. Even when your soil is ready and prepped, it still makes it much easier to dig. You're gonna need some gloves, men and women. Trust me, guys, you're gonna need the gloves. And another thing you're gonna need for small tools is a rake. You need a rake to rake the areas prior to putting the fabric down, because you want the surface to be level, because if it's not, which I've tried before trying to cut corners, and it is a mess. It's a mess with planting, it's a mess with holes, it messes everything up. So trust me, go ahead and invest in a rake.
You're also going to need these big ticket items on the farm. One is a great tiller. We call her Big Mama. She takes care of everything we need. Keep it tilling. The wheelbarrow, a piece of equipment that you really need it. If you don't got it, try one out. There's all kinds of sizes. You'll need it from your soil, hauling rocks, hauling everything you could imagine. So hey, essential tool, the wheelbarrow.
So let's talk about the watering system, what you're going to use. You can use irrigation or sprinkler. We used sprinkler system this past year. The year before we used irrigation, and the year prior to we used sprinkler. Okay, cool. The reason that we use sprinkler this year is that when we used irrigation last year, it cost a lot of money to put it in. And in 1 month, we spent $1,400 in water. Needless to say, we're back to using sprinklers. Depending on how many you need, depends on how big your farm is. We use around 12 to 15, and that's for an acre, acre and a half of complete produce on just those acre and a half.
Alrighty, y'all, we're talking about irrigation. We are talking about one thing you have to have unless you're gonna go turn on valves all day, and that's a timer. The bigger your farm, the more timers you're gonna need. You're going to need hoses, y'all. I found the best deal in color on hoses is at Harbor Freight. You can get like a 100-foot hose for like $39, and there's big size and all commercial. Let's not forget, y'all, you're going to use what they call Le Fabrique. Don't forget, if you don't use this, which you can, gardening is about putting the seed in the ground and putting some water on it. If you don't use it, you're going to pay the price on picking weeds and picking weeds. Trust me, get you some plastic, put it down, burn some holes, plant your plant. Use your fabric unless you want to pick weeds.
Another thing that you're going to need is a farm cart. You don't necessarily have to have it. It's not a must, but it sure makes life so much easier on the farm. You're also going to need compost, dark, rich compost. The first year we had it brought in, and you can do that, but it costs a pretty penny to do it that way. The second and third year, we made our own, and I suggest that's the easiest and most beneficial way, because then you know exactly what's in your compost. And if you got the time, and of course we all have the scraps, so that is my suggestion. And most of all, and most important, the main thing you need is hard work.
She ain't a kidding.
If you want to start a farm, to be honest, is willpower, strength, and a willingness to really work hard at it. But I believe if your desire is there and your willpower is there, you'll make it happen. It does take a lot of money as well to start a farm. If you're homesteading, these tools are good for that as well. But if you are starting a farm and you're looking for ideas of what you need, there's your basics. You really just want to start with some plants and go from there. That's how we started. I know a lot of people's question is money. Does it take a lot of money to start a farm? And I would love to say that it doesn't, because that's was my hope in the beginning, that it doesn't, but it does. It takes a lot of money. We started off spending over $20,000 the very first year, because you still have markets to go to too. You have to sell your produce. And in that aspect, you're paying for your spot, you're paying for your tent, your tables, your marketing supplies, your marketing production. Everything costs money. I don't believe that you actually have to start off with tons of money, but you do have to have some money to start off. I mean, I really wish I could say you don't, but you do. We both have full-time jobs, so that helped us out. And we still have full-time jobs, so that's what keeps us going. I think if I could go back and tell myself one thing in the beginning till now, it would be not to get too frustrated. I get frustrated when I lose things. In farming, you're going to lose. You're going to have successes and you're going to have failures. It's just the name of the game. But in your failures, that's what makes you successful. I think that learning what works for you is not always going to work for everybody else, and what works for everybody else is not always going to work for you. So do not get frustrated. There's going to be some things you cannot grow and everybody else can. And there's going to be things that you can grow amazingly and no one else can. So you just have to kind of hold on to those successes and move forth. In the end, it's not all about the money that you're spending. It's the peace and quiet and time that you spend with each other. and the love that you have for the farm. I think that's what makes it successful. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed the film and hope you learned something today. And we'll see you next time here on the farm.